Hey Islanders, and welcome to episode 23 of the Camano Voice. On this episode, I speak to a local sheriff's deputy in Island County. Please welcome Luke Plambeck. Hi, I'm Brandon Erickson, and you're listening to the Camano Voice podcast, where I interview folks around Camano Island and beyond. If you want to stay up to date on events, businesses, and even hear a little history of this area, subscribe to this podcast and share with your friends. Thanks for listening. Hey Islanders, and welcome to another episode of the Camano Voice, where we release a new episode every Tuesday. On this episode, I got to speak with Luke Plambeck, who is a local sheriff's deputy at Island County here on Camano Island. And it was a lot of fun getting to sit down and talk to him, kind of find out a lot of things about, a lot of misconceptions about law enforcement and how they interact with each other, and just things. I was telling him in the interview, as a kid, you would hear things from your friends like, "Well, did you know this was true?" And so, he indulged me in allowing me to ask some probably dumb questions, but still indulged me. So I really enjoyed getting to talk with Luke. He's also a local here. He's been on Camano for a long time, and so you'll hear about all of that in the podcast. Anyways, just wanted to do that. So without further ado, here's my interview with Luke Plambeck. Hey Islanders, it's Brandon with the Camano Voice, and I'm here today with Luke Plambeck. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So before we get into everything, tell us a little bit about Luke.
Well, gosh. I was born and raised on Camano Island. I went to Stanwood High School. I'm a proud graduate of Washington State University, as is my wife and many other family members.
Very good.
And, my wife and I live on the south end of Camano with our two children. My son Glenn is 9, and my daughter Tilly is 5.
Very cool. So you grew up on Camano, born and raised?
Born and raised on Camano, yep.
All right. Have you always been on the south end?
No, actually, I grew up on the north end on a very popular, lovely north end beach. Which at this point will remain nameless because I don't want our secret out. But, I grew up on the north end, very, very fortunate to grow up on the beach. Went to Stanwood High, like I said. But no, my wife and I moved down to the south end almost 5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
How was it down there?
Very peaceful and very quiet and very far from the north end.
It's one of those drives that, going on like a lot of people I've interviewed, they talk about taking people on a drive around the island, and it's a beautiful island to drive around in. But on a daily commute, I'm like, I feel like this would get old.
If it wasn't such a beautiful, pleasant drive, it would. And if I had to commute to Boeing and maybe south on I-5, as many of our residents do, that would be very trying. Fortunately, for my particular career choice, I don't have to commute very far.
Yeah. Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
All right. So is your wife then from the area as well?
Yes, she's from Stanwood. Her family's still there.
Okay. Very cool. So tell us about your profession and how you got started in it.
I'm one of your humble public servants. I am a deputy sheriff with Island County Sheriff's Office.
Very cool. How did you get started in it?
Well, unintentionally, I wasn't necessarily looking at police work. I was at Washington State University, and during the summer I had an opportunity to do an internship with a sheriff's office for credits over the summer. And so that's what I did, and after I went on a ride-along, and after my first ride-along, I knew this is exactly what I wanted to do as a career path. It was so much fun. I thought it was so cool. And ever since that point, I geared myself towards that goal. Yeah.
What was your degree at the time?
I ended up majoring in a social science major, a BA, social sciences, yeah.
And then did you have a different plan prior to that you were kind of aiming towards?
I didn't have a whole different plan at the time, no. I think I was looking into maybe forestry or like a park ranger or perhaps Department of Fish and Wildlife, something outdoors. But no, I wasn't committed to that at the time.
Yeah. Okay. So then when did you graduate from Wazoo?
You see, right 2005, and then that's also when I got hired with Island County Sheriff's Office.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So then did you have a connection there, or how did that work out?
Well, yeah, I maintained an internship and volunteer with Island County Sheriffs, finishing my college degree, and then at the time I was also working full time for Fred Meyer, and in retail. And upon finishing my degree, they're the first agency I applied for, and the first agency that offered me a job. And so,
Wow.
yeah, I was so eager to be a cop, though. Honestly, I would have gone anywhere, but that was the first place to offer me a job, and
Cool.
I don't regret it a bit. I love it.
Yeah. Well, and so that's pretty rare. I mean, I know I have friends and I've talked to a lot of people that have looked for police work, deputy anywhere, and it's like they're applying pretty far outside the area, and to end up like getting a job back on the island that you grew up on. I mean, that's pretty.
Yeah,
cool.
that was never the plan, but like I said, it worked. It worked out great, and as I get older and having family here and family still in the area, it really has been a blessing.
Yeah, it definitely makes a difference. It's something we toyed around with, like living farther away, things like that. But once you have grandkids, the grandparents like really want to be by them, and it's helpful too. I mean, on both
Absolutely.
sides. So, very cool. So then, how long have you been how long have you been a deputy sheriff?
Almost 15 years now.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So this is something like I see different name and titles and things like that. So like, what's the primary difference between like a deputy and a sheriff, and then like other classifications like state patrol, and how do they all work together?
Yeah. So the major difference. So a sheriff, the sheriff's office, that's county, and so a sheriff is elected by the citizens of a county, and so and then anybody working under the sheriff's office, I am a sheriff's deputy. I am the sheriff's deputy. He has deputized me, and I work for the sheriff, as do all my colleagues. So with a police. So that's sheriff's office, deputy sheriff.
Okay.
Now on to police. A police officer would typically refer to someone working in a city under a police chief. Police chiefs, as opposed to sheriffs, police chiefs are typically appointed by a mayor or like a city council. So they're appointed as opposed to elected.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And then so state patrol, as the name implies, that they work for the state, and underneath their chief, who is appointed, and ultimately the governor of the state of Washington. In regards to our lawful authority and powers, I am commissioned to enforce the laws of the state of Washington and Island County. And so my authority as a deputy sheriff and police officers working for any city and the state patrol, their authority to do investigations and arrest is statewide.
Okay. So, this is total, like, just like as friend, like when you're talking to friends, they're like, well, did you know this about sheriffs and stuff?
Sure.
Like, so does that mean like outside of Island County, you aren't able to pull people over, or how does that all work?
Well, no, as I said, so if I was to do an investigation, I typically would investigate things occurring in Island County, as is my commission. But we all have a state peace officer certification through the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission. So there's a state peace officer certification.
Okay.
State patrol, city cops, police officers, and deputy sheriffs, we all fall under that same certification to enforce the laws of the state of Washington. So anywhere in the state of Washington, a police officer working for a city, even if he's outside the city limits, a deputy sheriff, even if he or she is outside their county, and of course state patrol can pull you over for a infraction of traffic code, even if they're not within their jurisdiction.
Got it. Okay. How does that work with the reservations and stuff? Do they have their own? Is that outside?
Yes. So get into too. Don't get out my
too
realm
deep.
too far. But so some tribal police agencies are cross commissioned, so they
Okay.
can make arrests on and off tribal lands.
Yep.
And some other tribes do not have their police officers cross commissioned, so they're only allowed to make arrests and investigate tribal members. So it depends on the tribe.
Got it. Okay.
Typically, officers within cities and counties in the state of Washington typically wouldn't be doing law enforcement on tribal lands because they have their own police force.
Got it.
So it depends on the tribe.
Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. Yeah, I just feel like growing up, I heard so many different things from different friends, and they're like, yeah, well, this is how it works, or this is how it works.
Yeah, it's probably a little more to it than that, you know. Yeah, a lot of misconceptions about law enforcement. I'm happy to address any of those in this interview, but yeah, it depends. And then also, just back to tribal law enforcement. I went to in my academy class at the Basic Law Enforcement Academy in Burien. I had tribal police officers in there that were part of my class because they were cross-commissioned. They have to go through the same training, same certification.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And does that differ by state to state as far as...
It does.
Okay.
Yeah. They're Washington. Yeah. So, again, I do not have law enforcement powers in Oregon or Idaho. It comes from the state and, of course, from my county, from the sheriff of Island County.
Okay.
Different states run their academies differently and have different organizational structures within law enforcement.
Got it. Okay. And then I'm assuming like you have to be on the clock and all that for all of the things to be in effect?
Not necessarily. There's cases in which emergency situations or cases in which we might have to take law enforcement action when we're off duty. We prefer not to do that.
Sure.
Yeah, prefer not to do that. And the best thing an off-duty officer can be is a good witness.
Okay.
Call 911. But, there are situations in which that does occur sometimes.
Yep. Very cool. So what are some patterns that you've noticed in this area as your time as a deputy?
Patterns in regards to crime?
Yeah, crime or changes in the culture as far as like people on the island or kind of all of that.
Boy, that's a big question. I've seen Stanwood and Camano change immensely. I've seen 2 elementary schools built in my lifetime on Camano Island because I've been around that long. I saw Hagen's and Stanwood being built, QFC and all that. So Stanwood and Camano have grown tremendously in my lifetime.
Yeah. And,
obviously building a new high school now. In regards to law enforcement, what has changed? It's tough to be a cop nowadays, tougher than it used to be. Back when I started, it was very competitive 15 years ago. Everybody wanted to be a police officer, and there was a very large pool of candidates, qualified candidates to choose from. Unfortunately, now, for many different reasons, not a lot of people want to be a cop anymore, and it's really hard to find qualified applicants and candidates. There's just not a large hiring pool out there for law enforcement. But there are still a lot of good candidates out there. And I would encourage anybody that's interested to reach out to their local police department. If you're within Island County, reach out to Island County. We are hiring. Yeah. So, and anybody who's interested in law enforcement to go on a ride-along. See if you like. That's what happened to me. I didn't want to be a cop until I went on a ride-along. It's like, wow, this is great. This is what I want to do. So, that's anybody interested in law enforcement. I encourage them to go on a ride-along. See if that's what they might want to do. I think I trailed off from your original question. What's changed? If you want to get into what's changed about crime, our community, Camano Island, Stanwood, Camano Island in particular, we're in Island County as a whole, we're relatively low. We have a low crime rate, which is great. I love living here. It's a great place to raise a family, great place to work. We're obviously not a large municipality. We're not a suburb. Nothing like some of our larger cities in the state. However, we do have all the same crimes they do. They just don't happen as frequently. Yeah. So, thank goodness we don't have to deal with multiple homicides a year. We have a homicide maybe every couple years. Like I said, low crime rate. Most of the citizens we have contact with, are supportive of law enforcement and just really good people. And I really, really love our community. What crimes do we have? What's the trends? I think, on Camano Island, we have a lot of what they have everywhere. We have theft, property crime. We have domestic violence, fights. And we have criminal traffic, such as DUI, driving under the influence. Yeah. Yeah. And then how does, this is kind of a second question to follow up with that, but how does the
the sheriff department work in conjunction with like citizen patrol? And I guess, do you have a better explanation of kind of more explaining citizen patrol?
Sure. So we have the Sheriff Citizen Patrol. They're a volunteer organization, falls underneath the umbrella of the sheriff's office. So we pay for the vehicle and their equipment and everything like that. But they provide an invaluable service to Island County Sheriff's Office because Island County is, of course, Whidbey and Camano Island. And there's no ferry or bridge between the two.
They're so close together.
Exactly. So close yet so far. So, as I just did today, coming back from Coopville, you have to drive around, drive through Skagit County, across the beautiful Deception Pass Bridge, and onto Whidbey Island. And, so Whidbey Island is essentially cut in half, north and south precincts in regards to the sheriff's office, and then Camano Island is referred to as the east precinct. We have paperwork and items that need to travel back and forth between those two islands. Our Citizen Patrol does that for us weekly, 3 times a week. They also do they do so many other things. They do special events. They assist with special events and parking at special events, large community events, assist with that. They do vacation checks. So if you're gone on vacation and you would like someone to maybe pass by your house and see if everything's in order and that nobody's that isn't supposed to be there isn't there, then you can request a vacation check, and they'll actually do a check of your house when you're gone. And that's something that our community members really appreciate, but that deputies, we just don't have the time to do that.
Right.
So, I can't speak highly enough about the Citizen Patrol. They just do a really good job, and we're grateful to have them.
Yeah.
So,
no, and they come.
I'm sorry to interrupt. They're volunteers. The sheriff's office does not. We provide the equipment, but the program started years ago. I can't remember which year. But they are volunteers, so they are volunteering their time.
Yeah. Do you know how large they are? Members?
Oh my goodness! I didn't bring all my statistics with me, Brandon. You're killing me. No. There's dozens of them.
Okay.
And another thing they do our CPL concealed pistol license applications. Another thing they do.
Oh, okay.
Every first and third Thursday at the multi-purpose center there by Camano Animal Shelter, they do that. Another thing that we're just so grateful to have them do.
Very cool. Yeah. Okay, and then actually, I feel like I'm bouncing around now, but one of the questions that came up in my head was how often are sheriffs commissioned or voted in?
Every 4 years.
4 years. Okay.
Yep, every 4 years.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it. Okay, and then
same with county commissioners.
Okay. Yep.
Yep.
Are they on the same cycle, or is it they offset by like a year or 2 years?
I think they're currently offset, but don't quote me on that. It depends. If someone serves a lesser term, then that can be offset. If someone didn't serve their full term. Yeah.
Okay. And then the sheriff, is that sheriff over all Island County, or is it the different precincts?
No. Sheriff is a county official. They are the head law enforcement officer in Island County.
Okay.
Is the sheriff.
Yep.
And Sheriff Rick Felici. And like I said, that's all of Island County, so Whidbey and Camano Island.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
And so we're just divided into 3 precincts for logistics and responding to calls.
Yep. Okay.
The deputies are.
Yeah. Okay, and then overall, do you feel like crime has increased over the time that you've been an officer? Or?
Yeah, getting back to that question, it's hard to say. Crime kind of comes in waves, not like crime waves, but it comes in ebbs and flows, I should say. If you have a certain population of people that might be doing a lot of property crime, and then hopefully we apprehend them, or they move on to another area, we might see that drop in property crime. So it's always changing. In regards to property crime, it ties directly to drug addiction and substance use disorder. So, in my, like I said, almost 15 years of law enforcement, I can't think of any off the top of my head. Well, maybe one individual who was doing burglaries and prowling cars and committing property crime, theft, that wasn't doing it to fuel their drug habit, and that's the nature of drugs and drug abuse, is that they cost money, and that's what drives property crime.
Yeah. I sometimes wonder like if crime, because you hear about so much now because of social media, the internet, just everything. Like you can hear about a crime that happens across the world, and it's a terrible thing that happens, but we hear about it now. Whereas 20 years ago, all the things that happened outside, like unless our news was specifically reporting on it, you wouldn't know happened. Do you feel like as a overall that we have that crime is increased, or is it just that we get bombarded with a lot more stories now because we have the ears to get for that?
Well, excuse me. I think social media and just you're right, our awareness and reporting, we have at the tip of our fingers, we have access to news, not just from our own community, but across the world. So, I mean, there is that influence, certainly. Again, speaking of Island County, I can't say that we've, had any tremendous great increase or decrease in crime over my tenure. We might have one, one year or one summer that's particularly busy with an abundance of domestic violence arrests. Why? I don't know. There was something in the water. No, kidding. I don't know. I don't know. It was a full moon. But no, it depends, But the property crime does definitely tie back to drug abuse. And I would definitely say, I've seen, with our population of people suffering from addiction, in our small community, we know who they are, and we have a pretty good idea who's committing crime. We just have to be able to catch them and prove it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I said, there's definitely that correlation that I can see. It's another really thing cool about it, living in a community such as ours is, when we do arrest and take to jail someone that is committing a lot of property crime, or someone that is dealing drugs and drawing a lot of people who commit property crime to our community, and we take them to jail for a little while, you can really see the effect. It's not like there's so much like in a larger municipality such as Seattle or somewhere like King County or other larger areas, communities where it's just a drop in the bucket. You can't see. In our community, when you have a success, you can see the impact, at least as a deputy, as a law enforcement officer, and that's really cool. Another reason I like working here. Another one of before I move past this, we're talking about addiction and drugs. I wear a couple unique hats with the sheriff's office. One of them is I'm a field training officer, so I train the privilege of training our new deputies to come out of the academy, and there's a field training process that goes for approximately 14 weeks of on-the-job training. That's after a 5.5-month academy.
Okay.
So a lot of training, a lot of investment in our deputies. Mm-hmm. So I'm a field training officer. I'm also part of the drug evaluation classification program as a DRE, a drug recognition expert. So another kind of specialty training I have and a niche I have in law enforcement is that I'm trained to detect drug-impaired drivers specifically behind the wheel. So most patrol have really good training on and know how to investigate and find the alcohol-impaired driver.
Yeah.
And so there's a fewer of us that have a specialty in actually detecting that drug-impaired driver behind the wheel. And so that's been a major focus of my career. And then lastly, before we get off that topic, I also am part of the Island County has an opioid outreach program, which we just started actually 3 years ago as a pilot program focused on South Whidbey and Camano. But we actually do outreach with these people who are suffering from substance use disorder, addiction, and we do outreach. We go offer them services, so I kind of take off my law enforcement hat and put on my social worker hat, although I'm still a law enforcement when I'm doing that. I'm still in uniform, but we reach out and offer them services. Hey, what can we do to improve your situation? Would you be interested in getting into treatment? If someone is interested in getting into treatment, we can actually it's amazing what we can do. We can get them in a drug assessment within a day or two, and we can actually, if someone is willing, and even if they have nothing, no resources, nothing, we can get them into a treatment facility, not in Island County, but we can get them connected with the resources and into a treatment facility within a week. And that's working. It's a partnership between Island County Public Health, Human Services, and then the Sheriff's Office. So that's been really great to work, with as part of that team and see some successes in that.
Yeah.
Again, if you And like I said, it's not a diversion program. We work with people, and if I'm working with someone that has a minor warrant for their arrest, I'm not going to take them to jail for that. I'm trying to do outreach with them. However, if we tell people up front, if you're still accountable for your actions and what you do. If I'm on patrol and you go shoplift, you're going to get arrested for shoplifting. You're going to get arrested for theft. So it's in no way a get out of jail free card at all. Not by any means, but we've had some success. And like I said, if you can take that individual and give them, get them off the street, get them to stop, into a treatment program where they don't have to break into, 5 cars a day and prowl your car to fuel their drug habit, which could be $100 to $200 a day. They don't have to break into 3 houses and steal 3 power drills every day to maintain that drug habit. If you can get that person off the street and into recovery eventually, that's a major impact on our property crime.
Right.
You're not only helping that individual as a human being, very important, but also you can see that impact on property crime.
Yeah. Well, and I think, just we just, as individuals and stuff, each of us end up, every person ends up taking their own road because, and a lot of that's not chosen by you. It's where you're born into and everything like that. And, we're not all starting at the same start line, in life. And so I think when you able to give people like that are struggling with this and they just don't see a way out, and giving them an option and the ability to help themselves out of this situation, and give them hope really is such a neat program to be that you're a part of.
It's very, it has a lot of value, and it's very challenging, but there's so much value in it too. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. That's really cool. I guess, what are some of the best ways you see that we can help one another as a community member, right? In reducing crime and reducing homelessness and helping one another out. What are things you see that people can do?
Another big question. But all right, I've had enough coffee. I'm shot out of a cannon. I can go on for forever about this, but I won't. Something very simple, Brandon. Know your neighbor. Talk to your neighbor. Don't be afraid to call us if you need us. If you see something suspicious, report it. We get a lot of people, unfortunately, sometimes we get calls like, hey, I saw something I think you should know about. And it was really suspicious. This guy was climbing through a window, and it happened an hour ago. And then, but no, it's very common. And you ask, well, is there a reason you weren't able to call? Well, I wasn't sure. But that's okay. You don't have to be sure. Just call us. If you see something, say something. If you're suspicious about something, report it. If it's nothing, we're not going to go harass a poor innocent citizen. We'll go investigate. And most of the time, it probably will be nothing. There's a lot of times just crime prevention. Know your neighbor. Talk to your neighbor. It breaks my heart, in our modern day and age. And these are great communities on Camano Island. But I'll go to a community and someone will there will be a burglary. And I said, okay, have you talked to your neighbor? Do they see anything? And they say, no. Okay, I don't know who they are. And the neighbor, 2 people living next door to each other. They say, I don't know who they are. How long you lived here? 7 years. Like, okay. Well, and that's okay. That's their right not to know. But when communities, when people talk to each other, when neighbors are neighbors, when you know who your neighbors are, when you have their phone numbers, those kinds of things. When we investigate crimes, and if for crime prevention, it's so important. And then also, talk to us. Don't be afraid to call the sheriff's office, even if you have a question. That's what we're here for. We're here to serve you. Talk to us, wave us down, call us. People actually functioning as a healthy community, talking to one another. A lot of crime is so preventable. Kind of along that same line, impaired driving. Again, that's my niche in law enforcement and my specialty, but it's so preventable. With friends or family, if you're socializing, especially with the holidays coming up, it's so simple, and you've heard it 100 times. But I'll tell you again, someone doesn't look like they're safe to drive, then make sure they get a safe ride home. Be a designated driver. And if you do find yourself in a situation where you're like, I don't think I should drive, then don't drive. The best designated driver is a zero alcohol, zero drugs, zero cannabis designated driver. That's the safest way to do it, and it's the only way to do it. That's so preventable. Yeah, very prevalent, but also very preventable. So there's my crime prevention speech. Did that answer it?
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
And then you said homelessness. Did you? So Camano Island with homelessness. We're a very unique community. We don't have necessarily homeless people per se. Tent cities living on the side of the street. We do have a lot of people suffering from substance use disorder, addiction, and they're kind of couch surfers. So they'll stay at one kind of drug house and they'll move on to the next. So essentially, they're homeless, but they're kind of moving between houses.
Yep.
They're not living out in the middle of the woods. But they're homeless. Yeah. So that's kind of our homeless community, preventing homelessness. We have a housing support center with Island County. Any of our deputies, we have a mental health outreach program and an embedded mental health worker that, comes out with us and can respond on his own to people with, mental health issues. And again, that outreach component as we have with the opioid outreach. And all the deputies, we all have pamphlets and flyers on this, and we have services that we can and reference lists that we can provide to people. And so, that's what we can do. How to solve ultimately homelessness? If that was your question, what can we do? I don't know about that one. That's $1 million question. But I think most homelessness, in my experience, centers around mental health and substance use disorder.
Right.
Period.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and that's I'm part of the Camano Chamber of Commerce, but we do a joint chamber meeting with the Stanwood, and Lynn Ayers, who I hope to get on the podcast, she's the director of the Stanwood Camano Food Bank, and she talked about just kind of like, a lot of times, especially like in Stanwood, homelessness is not what you see in Seattle and stuff, but it's people that are living in an apartment that don't know if they're going to be able to make rent next month and pay for things, for food and water, like all the basic necessities. And it's more shielded from us because we don't see it as blatant. But these people are one paycheck away from, being homeless, like on the streets. And it was really, touching to hear the stories of them being able to go into these people's homes and provide them food and just be able to support them in that. And that's why I hope to get her on the podcast, hopefully prior to the holiday season, just kind of talk about like, what is the food bank doing during that time and how can you get involved? Because
that's a great, that would volunteer at the food bank. That's wonderful. I met her. She's great. But yeah, that's definitely a question. Aim towards her. She could, that's right up her alley. As far as being involved in the community, donating, volunteering. Stanwood, again, same kind of situation. Don't have the homeless population on the street like Seattle. It's a completely different community. Different kind of homelessness, They're in a home, but they're, like I said, paycheck to paycheck or, couch to couch.
Yeah. Do you guys, or rather there's like Island County and like, do all the other departments and stuff, police departments, is there like general communication between them?
Oh, absolutely. All the time. Yeah. Again, our unique community, Stanwood Camano community, yes, we are Island County, but, most of our services for people in need, and people not in need, just our services, as a community, Stanwood Camano are kind of their own community.
Yeah.
Two different counties, but their own community. And, always going back and forth. So yeah, we communicate with Stanwood Police Department, which is under Snohomish County Sheriff's Office, and we're always communicating. There's intelligence bulletins, crime prevention, investigative bulletins that are transferred via email all the time. We all call and talk to each other. If there's only one deputy working on Camano Island and we need backup, we call Snohomish County or Stanwood PD. And likewise, if there's only one officer in Stanwood and the other North Snohomish County units are busy, they might call us. But yeah, we have great interagency cooperation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. And does that spread outside of Stanwood Camano area as far as like do you guys are you in communication with like Seattle or Bellingham or?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, through emails and everything like that, law enforcement intelligence bulletins, we get those all the time. We get them from Seattle. We get them from all around the state. Especially if someone might be headed to your area or has history in your area, a criminal suspect. But yeah, no, agencies are always talking to each other. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And because someone might steal something here and sell it in Seattle, or likewise, someone might do a crime in Seattle and have family association here. So, it's people travel, and so we've got to talk to each other, and we do quite effectively.
Yeah. Does that? I feel like I keep asking.
That's okay.
But does that expand outside of the state, like state to state? How does that work?
Yeah, if it can, absolutely. especially like wanted persons. We get emails all the time. Hey, this individual is wanted for, whether it's a capital crime, murder, or a serious felony, or federal crime is wanted in your state, or they have family in the area. They might send your area or your agency a bulletin saying, hey, this individual may be headed there. So absolutely, yeah. Most wanted lists, it's not just the FBI most wanted list. There's all sorts of wanted lists, and they'll, we communicate with each other, yeah. And like I said, people suspects travel across state lines, especially when they're trying to evade law enforcement. So yeah, it's not uncommon at all to talk to, and even for a patrol deputy in any week to talk to someone out of state, following up on an investigation they're working.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so this is kind of a like another big question, but what do you kind of see as the future of the like Island County Sheriff's Department and just the future of that in general?
Well, I think something that's hopefully in the near future and something that's actually attainable, it seems to be, as we're hiring and doing better with some of our hires and retaining people, is 24-hour coverage, 2-deputy 24-hour coverage. So there's always a deputy working on Camano Island and North Precinct and South Precinct, Woodby Island. But for Camano, there are times where there is only one deputy working. And the ultimate goal for this sheriff and the previous sheriff and the sheriff before him, it would be 24-hour 2-deputy coverage. That means that on some more dangerous calls, anything to do with domestic violence, where we're trained to be effective not to go into certain calls with only one deputy or only one officer. It's not safe to do so.
Right.
We have to have a cover officer. This is as far as police tactics go and how to keep us safe. So having 2-deputy coverage, having that second deputy able to respond immediately during any hour of the day,
right,
is what we're going for. As opposed to, we're going to get another deputy there to go to your call. We're not going to abandon you, but it could take time. It could take 20, 30 minutes. It could take longer to get a backup officer, whether State Patrol or someone from Snohomish County, out to that Camano Island call. It just depends. So just with officer safety, keeping us safe, just with our everyday job that we do is very dangerous. And always having a deputy on with you is that's what we're going for, is to be 2-deputy 24-hour coverage on Camano. And I think that's an attainable goal. Yeah. In the near future, that's where I'd like to see us going. That's the future of Island County law enforcement. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and this is kind of another question: is how do you like? I don't know. Like, for me, I'm not the most courageous person or brave at times. So, like, how is that? How do you self-talk yourself or get through? Like, each situation can be different or unique. How do you personally, like, kind of work yourself up and get there? Well, the idea, yeah. How do you handle stressful situations? Yeah, doing cop stuff. That exactly. Yeah. Well, it all goes back to the selection process. It's all relative. Some people are meant to do different jobs or are just good at different jobs. There's a lot of jobs that I think I'm a good cop. There's a lot of jobs I probably would not be very good at. It depends on the individual, and that goes back to the hiring process is very strict. There's a polygraph and psychological evaluation, A background investigation is very thorough and detailed. So hopefully you're selecting a good candidate that is suited to law enforcement. And then after that, you make it through the training. The academy provides training, and then of course the field, and then office after the academy. If you're successful graduating the academy, the state academy, then you go to a field training officer program where you're doing on-the-job training. Again, another screening process and a training process. But it all goes back to training. I've been. So how do I handle scary cop stuff? I've been through a lot of scary things, and you always find it scary afterwards. But when you're doing it, if you're trained well and you're a competent law enforcement professional, when you get into those situations, you just fall back on your training. So it's okay. What do you do in this situation? Well, I do this, and that, and you handle the call, and then sometimes after everything's done and you're okay and the moment is over, the moment of action is over and you're debriefing, then sometimes I do look back and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I got out of that one alive, and that's but that's part of it. Yeah. I mean, it's you rely on your training. That's how you handle it. Also with law enforcement now too, we have a lot of support systems in place, which previous generations of law enforcement didn't have. We have, if I needed a counselor, I could get one, and I could be referred through the sheriff's office for that. It's not discouraged to seek counseling. It's not. We have a peer support system in the sheriff's office. Most agencies do now, to where if you go through a critical incident, or even if not, even if you're just dealing with job stress through things that we have to see that aren't pleasant, and just the stress of the job, we can reach out to a peer support, a fellow deputy who's in peer support, and there's a peer support program. There's a chaplain that's available for us to speak to. So there's a whole support network around that if someone needs it. I'm also part of our peer support program in Island County, and I've also utilized it too. So it's that's very important too. So I mean, that's how you handle it. Yeah.
No, that's great.
That kind of answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. Here's a curveball question at the end. What do you see as the future of Luke Plambeck?
The future of Luke Plambeck? Well, I hope to survive one more day of law enforcement. No, I'm kidding. I hope to continue my career in law enforcement. I hope to retire healthy from the sheriff's office. I do intend on staying with the Island County Sheriff's Office. It's my home. I'm a member of the community. We live here. We intend on staying here. I mean, that's raising happy and healthy kids, happy, healthy family. Seeing a couple kids off to college wouldn't be too bad, after they get their academic and sports scholarships. I mean, that's what I'm focused on. I'm a family man first. I'm so grateful to have everything that I have. I have almost died a couple times on the job over the years, and I look back and to some of those situations I've made it out of, and to look where I am here, still alive, still healthy, having recovered from injuries. I'm just so grateful to have everything that I do have. My family. Yeah. So yeah.
Very cool.
That's pretty much it.
All right. So I like to end every podcast with some rapid fire questions. So the first one is, do you have a lesser known or favorite location on Camano Island that you like to hang out?
Well, if I did, you'd be the last to know. No, that wouldn't be secret anymore. No, boy, I don't know. When I was a kid, I used to love going out to the state park, and even still to this day, going out to walk the Al Emerson Trail at Camano Island State Park. It's kind of one of my fun loops to walk there, and especially in the spring and the fall. The Bluff Trail is, I think they still call it that goes all the way around the entire park of the state park. That's a cool one too. That's fun. I'm trying to think what other location I could give you without outing my secret locations. Yeah, that's Barnum Point has a new trailhead there. Just south of Iverson Beach is kind of this. I think that they tie into each other, but there's a new parking area there, and that's. Have you been out there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
So
it's excellent.
There's an awesome new parking area there. Great trails. They did a really good job with that. That the Barnum Point area. That's fun. I went on a picnic there with my wife and daughter last summer, and that was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I'm willing to reveal right now. Like I said, there's so many cool places, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. Pretend you have a friend coming in from out of town that's never been here. What would their first day look like here?
You know, we'd probably go to my folks, my dad or my mom's house on the north end of the beach where I grew up, and we'd probably do family stuff there as we always do. The family events there and birthdays, or just spend time on the beach, have great food. Aside from that, if we were to stray from the family house there, I'd probably come out to Terry's Corner for a Bait Cafe burger because I love the Bait Cafe. I love the burgers they make there, and obviously I'd come here for a coffee. Love Camano Coffee Roasters, which is kind of how. Obviously, you and I met. I was one of your patrons. You probably saw me in every day of the week. I was like, I better talk to this guy finally. So, I love your coffee. I'd probably come out for Terry's Corner, the North End, for a coffee and grab a burger if we were to go out somewhere. Yeah, maybe out to the state park, too. Draws a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. Very cool. And then, who is an interesting or fascinating person in this community that I should interview next?
A single one?
Yes.
A single
or multiple.
Person. You know, or multiple.
Yeah, you can say more than one.
I had a tough time with that. So, gosh, I've met so many interesting people. But they're all in jail. That was a joke. Okay. No, there's a lot of interesting people, community members out here. You know, one of my good friends, Matt Waite, he's a fireman with Camano Island Fire Rescue. Also, longtime Camano resident. His family is a longtime Camano people. A lot of history on Camano Island, and just all around great guy. He'd be interesting to sit down and interview. Jim Deeney from Thai Store owner.
Oh, okay.
Jim and Lori, yeah. I like talking with Jim. He'd also be a great interview, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very, very fun to talk to. Very interesting.
Yeah, that'd be
another
good.
South Ender.
Yeah. All right. And then lastly, if you could have a message on a billboard on Camano Island, what would that say?
Is this PG rated podcast?
Yes.
Okay. That was also so I had a lot of fun a lot of fun ideas for that, boy. We could write so this is when they're coming onto the island, right?
Yes. Yeah, right on that hill.
Camano Island, they filmed Jaws here. That's not true.
Just keep it up there.
It might keep people away. No. We love our visitors just like our residents. Camano Island, we haven't sunk yet.
Yes, that's a real concern too.
No. Camano Island, I'm trying to think how many smart alecky sayings I could come up with in another short amount of time. Camano Island, not just a place, but a state of mind.
Yeah.
I think that was used once before, too, somewhere.
I haven't heard it here, though.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Not just a place, but a state of mind. Yeah, welcome back.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to be hiring me to paint that sign anytime soon. If you haven't cued in on that yet. Yeah.
That'll be the next project
and
you guys work on.
And those are all my PG answers to that question. Finally, by the end of the podcast, I'm shot out of a cannon thanks to a delicious large cup of Camano Island coffee.
Perfect.
So, yeah, I'm just ready to get rolling again. Can we do this whole thing over again?
Yeah, let's do round 2.
Okay, round 2. Coming up.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, Brandon. That was fun.
All right, awesome. And Islanders, I will talk to you on the next one. Well, a big thank you to Luke Plambeck for joining me on the podcast today, and thank you for listening. If you haven't already, be Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. And for more information on this episode or previous episodes, go to CamanoCommons.com/podcast. That's CamanoCommons.com/podcast. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.